Good morning. So I'm I'm now near the apartment, and so I was reminded. So a couple of days ago, I recorded a video titled "Not a Cautionary Tale," where I said that I understand to some extent why some people are so interested in the fate of the like the fairy tale, David and Absalom, and because like I understand that some people, but I said that it's a great mistake to think that this is kind of like a cautionary tale of of how apocalypses are happening. I discussed like the issue of the great filters and why these are all like false ideas, and what's actually happening is that you are already in a war. So you need to think about what's going on now, not like a theoretical cautionary tales. But there is one specific thing that I want to add on the same lines that came to my mind after reviewing the two videos from yesterday, the 20th and 21st, like the last chapters of the robot saga, is that maybe there is another point that should be, highlighted, and that's the fact that I said it many times. It's not new thing. What you should, first of all, regarding regarding Venus itself, and I always said that the major problem, the major question regarding Venus, like what's happening on Venus, is why didn't they create a new society that is highly technological and advanced and prosperous, especially taking into account that they have their own bodies, which is a great piece of technology. And this is the most important piece of technology, actually. And they still have it. They didn't lose it. They have their bodies, right? So so it's much more. This question is much more important than than what happened. I don't know how many years ago. This is also an important question, and yes, I try to describe it, and I continue today, hopefully. But it's also of importance, even though because people should know about their past and their nature. But a much more critical question is what's happening right now. Like, why are they now in such a bad condition? And the answer, I already given you the answer. There are several answers. Like, it's also to some extent because of what the Israelis have done over there, but much more important in a global scale is the fact that they have a fucked up culture, and specifically they assassinate the males, and the women cannot, and the ones that do it are mostly women, and they cannot blame their husbands. Like, they cannot say. Sometimes the evolutionary females like to portray themselves as slaves to their men. Like they like to do it both in Venus and in Earth. They have this kind of tendency, but it's incorrect, and it was never correct. And second, it's part of it is kind of like a sexual fantasy, and part of it, which is the more serious and problematic part, is the fact that they are doing it in order to reject responsibility. But they are sentient creatures. They have free will. They have free will in Venus and they have free will in Earth, and they choose to murder men, and they do it for a long time. Not always. Sometimes they live in in cooperation, in communities. It's not like that every time a female sees like a male that is not her husband, she kills him in Venus. Not like that. But after a long time, you understand that. Even small, even like significant, even like very significant, but still significant, statistically significant behaviors over time, they accumulate. And by the way, this is true for this actually, and should be said. The truth should be said that the spread of Christianity throughout the world was tremendously important for getting out of the of the dark times of the past. And don't be mistaken, what you call dark ages, I mean, and people don't use that. I mean, in academic circuits, people don't use these terms anymore. But in the public, it's still like widely. I mean, people think that. I mean, presumably it was so great during the Greco-Roman times, but then I mean, there was like 1,000 years of darkness that many people blame on the church. But then I mean, there was the Italian Renaissance, presumably that people rejected Christianity, and especially Catholicism, and and they became Protestant, and even and later atheist, and then there was science revolution, and now everybody is so happy. This is bullshit. Every sentence, every word of this description is bullshit, and it's actually no one in the academic, in the academic world. I mean, this is old-fashioned view of reality that unfortunately is still common to this day. Just to say that, I mean, things like witch hunt, like that sometimes people think that, I mean, they are characteristics of presumably the European Middle Ages and presumably related to Christianity. Just to say, you know who actually practices the witch hunt to the greatest extent by far? The answer is the Romans. Yes, the Romans, during the time of the empire. Why? Because humans were always disgusting. And the spread of Christianity, of course, there were all sort of like, I mean, you know, like, of course, I mean, there were like bad, there were, I mean, bad, like, I mean, not everything was great. I mean, yes, some priests were pedophiles, yes. Some some kind of like, I mean, presumably Christian monarchs used Christianity or, I mean, the religious in order to facilitate like wars that they wanted to do anyway, but they called it like, I mean, you know, religious wars or crusades or all sorts of like I mean, ridiculous names. But yes, I mean, so not everything was great, but yes, definitely the replacement of the pagan cultures in Europe, not only in Europe, but certainly in Europe, the gradual replacement of the pagan cultures, because these pagan cultures were disgusting. I mean, also another thing that, I mean, it's not new. It started during the 19th century, and it's discussed by Chesterton. I mean, he was a famous writer, and like he became like a celebrity radio, like what we call today televangelist, but it was over the radio. It was one of the first. Like he had millions of like listeners, I mean, during the first decades of the 20th century. That, I mean, so he spoke about Christianity, but in a very popular way, and it was very like, so not only in England, but it was in English, but the other like people, like it was broadcasted to other places as well. So, but he was very prolific author, and it was actually, it was quite forgotten today. But I came to like, I mean, I got aware of him, like, I mean, through my interest in Jorge Luis Borges, that many times is referencing Chesterton. So kind of like it raised my interest in Chesterton. So I mean, Chesterton famously wrote about like more than 100 years ago that I mean, so there was already the trend to think like that it wasn't like a widespread trend, but it became famous because it was spread, I mean, inside the higher circuits of society in England and also in the United States, like by intellectuals and like, you know, people of like rich people, and mostly among bored people. So they became to think that, I mean, that Christianity is the root of all evil, and that they want to reconnect with their pagan past. Presumably. So, I mean, they became neo-pagans. And it's interesting because today we also have this kind of like niche kind of like, you know, people that, I mean, it's not common, but it's interesting because what's interesting is that it's so similar to exactly what Chesterton speaks about, that happened more than 100 years ago. So people start to think we want to reconnect with our pagan roots, and, you know, Christianity, I mean, robbed us of our pagan culture. So, first of all, Chesterton himself, which was, again, a famous radio evangelist, like, he wasn't evangelist because, you know, like the televangelists of today, but I mean, like a popular, like, I mean, Christian speaker over the radio that, I mean, reached millions. So, I mean, you will never like suspect that he was like anti-Christian or something like that. So he said, first of all, like, if you want to reconnect with your pagan past, and to do it in the most authentic way, the best place to go is to the nearest church, like where you live. Because your pagan past was completely deleted, and everything like you have no access to it at all. What you think about your pagan past is fantasy and ridiculous fantasy. But it doesn't mean that nothing stays. But the only thing that actually stayed of your pagan past was channeled through Christianity. So the only way to somehow connect with your lost pagan past is to go to church. Because any other way, like, will be completely unauthentic and fantasy. Because Chesterton believed, and I also, believe that, very explicitly, and this belief can be found many times in these videos. So maybe it will not be shocking to you, but Chesterton believed, and I also believe very strongly that Jesus was a culmination of it was kind of like Jesus was a historical figure, but he was also a logical conclusion. It's difficult to this is the deep subject, philosophical subject, and I'm afraid that without preparation, and I didn't prepare for this video, and because I almost never prepare, so I'm afraid that without preparation I will mispresent this subject, and I don't want to do it because it's a complicated issue. But the idea is that Chesterton didn't invent it. Actually, people even before that. It was actually since it was known since ancient time. Actually, it's kind of a Neoplatonic idea that the Jesus is like a logical conclusion of kind of like what we say today, like evolution of thought or progress of thought. Maybe I'll speak about it some other time, like in a dedicated video, and maybe I'll prepare for it, because really I don't want to mispresent it. But the idea is that Christianity replaced pagan traditions, but also you incorporated into some part some like elements that were in it, and because of that, the only way that if you really want to connect with the pagan past, you can only do it by just go to the church. Because any other kind of like representation of paganism, and this was true during the 19th century, and it's true today in the 21st century, is just bullshit. It's just bullshit. It's manufactured fantasy. And reality was extremely disgusting. Reality was extremely disgusting. Unbelievably disgusting. And this was the truth. It was truth all over the world, and it was truth in Europe. So even just like small adjustment in behavior. And it's not like that. Okay, so wherever people came with the cross, people put like the cross on and declared now this is a Christian land. Everybody started to act ethically. It's not like that, but today more than ever, people understand statistics, and they understand genetics, like in the broad sense, and they understand like evolution in the broad term, how small changes over iterations of generations are accumulating, like with compound interests. So people today can understand more than ever that even if you only change behavior of people to small but significant but small extent, like for example, you stop like the Viking, or if not all of them, you just let's stop like 1/4 of the Viking raids, and instead you with the same like people workforce you create monasteries or churches in which people pray, but also they accumulate books, and then more people, not much more, let's say that only like 20% more people are now know how to read and write, which was not like a trivial thing at all until very late in history, as you know. But let's say that there are like quarter less Vikings that raid people and kill them and rape their wives and kill their gold, and quarter more people that are actually 25% more people like know how to read and write, which is, it might sound little, but over generations this alone and these kind of changes are demonstrably, the consequence of the spread of Christianity in Europe. And so over time, over like hundreds of years, these changes, they create completely different society. Because even small changes can make a huge impact. So it's the same in Venus. I mean, I don't say that all of them, all the women always, like, when they see a man that is not a husband, they assassinate him. And no, of course, sometimes they live together and they have societies over there, they have tradition, they have culture. But but you don't need, but if there is kind of like, a known practice that never stops of assassinating the males, and again, the females cannot blame their husbands. They cannot say, we are just slaves to our masters, even though sometimes they like to do so, and they also like to say it in Earth, and it's just untrue. This is just, as I say, partly a sexual fantasy, and partly, and more seriously, just a way to reject responsibility for their own actions. But they are sentient creatures, they have free will. God gave them free will. They can, if they murder, they are responsible for the people that they murder. And they murder men in Venus. And again, after thousands of years, there is accumulated effect that, there are just, not enough males. And this is the main problem in Venus. This is the problem right now. Not like, the fairy tale, which is interesting. If the fairy tale is, I promise to conclude the fairy tale, maybe even today, if I have the energy and the inclination. But the problem of Venus is not a fairy tale. The problem of Venus is what's happening right now. And the major issue is these assassinations. And that's why they are in the gutters. That's why and that's why, people of the earth can subjugate them and do whatever they want to them for thousands of years. And as I said, they do it since Egypt, at least since the Old Kingdom, which means, at the latest, since 5,000 years ago, but maybe even before that. And they were always most, the stronger. The people of the earth were always, by far, the stronger side, like, in this kind of, relations. Like, even in the days of the Old Kingdom, they were already much superior to whatever you can find in Venus, from, both technological point of view, and also, more importantly, the social structure, how complicated the social structure is. So another thing that I want to add, all this was already said, but I should add another thing, another point. So this, so many people today, they think that, we don't want the things that happened in Venus, presumably, I don't know how many years ago, will happen to us. So, it's so important, presumably, the fairy tale is important because, it will explain what happened to, some people, I don't know how many years ago, and we want to avoid it. But, at the same time, they do not ask themselves what's happening right now in Venus, and how do you in Earth replicate it right now? And this is the ridiculous. You are interested in the fairy tale that happened, I don't know, a million years ago, instead of asking what's happening now and how do you replicate it now. And you do replicate it now. Because this is exactly what you do in Earth. This is exactly what you do to me. I am not a male Venusian, but I'm replacement, okay? I can act like a male Venusian. I can have a father Venusian children and can have a family life with Venusian female. And I have the inclination to do so, and I want to do so. But look what you do to me. You rob me of my children. You take my children away from me. I have two daughters that I love so much, and I raised them since they were born. And I haven't seen them for almost a year now. And you terrorize not only me, but you terrorize them. You hurt their souls, maybe forever. You scratch their souls. And what will they think about their father? What will they think about any man in the future? What will they think about males in general in the future? What kind of psychology you develop in these little, innocent angels, Eli, Nor, and David? What are you doing to them? And also, what are you doing to me? So, look what you do here on Earth. There is one male that can act like as a man and a father. And also, not only that he can do it, but he wants to do it, and he tried to do it. And look what you do. You prosecute him. You do everything that is in your power. So he will not be able to raise his children, and they will be detached from him, and that he will be and that he will have no option to have family life and even not sex life, and certainly no kind of romantic relationship. And you do it right now in Earth. So essentially, on Earth, you replicate exactly the Venusian behavior that caused them to stay in the gutters for so long. And at the same time, you ask, what happened a million years ago? Tell us, please, so we will not replicate these kind of behaviors, because we don't want to end like them. How stupid can you be? If you don't want to be like them, don't act like them right now.